I am the CEO at Wallis Companies, and I am so honored to be here with you all this morning. Thank you all for taking time out of your day to start it with us. I am a childhood friend of Rachel, and we worked together for a couple of decades as well. So sometimes people confuse us for one another. I know that's hard to believe because physically we look nothing alike, but it happens from time to time. So I want to start out and give you a few tips to help tell us apart. I grew up in the family business, but I'm not a family member. And so do you know when you work in a family business and you get a promotion, you get new responsibilities, and then you keep everything that you already had? Well, that's been the story of my life for the last 30 years. And I have been blessed to be part of an organization that has built a culture that brings out the best in the family and in the team. So if I were to be asked about my spirit animal, I would say I'm similar to a bumblebee. I am very industrious, I'm highly organized, and I'm dedicated to getting things done. I also like to make sure that my team is taken care of. But I have a stinger, and I'm not afraid to use it. If I were asked about Rachel and her spirit animal, well, she reminds me of the majestic and mighty matriarchal elephant. Rachel has a deep compassion for people, and she builds meaningful relationships. She creates a sense of belonging among the team by lifting them up through her encouragement and caring support. People know that Rachel puts others first, and they are willing to follow her in any place she chooses to take us.
Thank you, Tracey. Well, Tracey's perspective, I don't know if my mic is on, but if you can all hear me, you're good? Okay. Tracey's perspective comes from us working together in the family business for 24 years. My family perspective might be just a little bit different. Yes, sometimes I can be known as a black sheep. Just doing things a little bit different than everyone else. But mainly, I like to think of myself as a gardener. Because family businesses don't get maintained on their own. They have to be cultivated season after season. But I do want to go back to Tracey for a second. Tracey's parents worked at the Chrysler plant, and she was the first child of assembly line workers to get a full ride Lee Iacocca scholarship to any college she wanted to choose in the United States. So what she didn't tell you is she is uber smart. And today we are excited to share the Wallis story through two different lenses. Tracey from the company lens, and I'm going to stay in my own lane with the family lens. So let's just start by breaking down our family. The first generation is my mom. The second generation is myself and my three brothers, and all five of us are very active shareholders and all serve on the board. Our third generation is made up of 11 grandchildren, ranging in age from 5 to age 30. And we established a family council 3 years ago. And the family council is there not only to educate the third generation on Wallis's history, as well as all of our operations today. But I think more importantly, that family council gives us a forum to make collective decisions across generations. And in addition to the across generations, all of our family, so even non-blood shareholders, are part of these family meetings. So it also gives everyone a chance to have a voice. But like all companies and families, there have been moments in our history where things could have completely fallen apart. And things that we thought were firmly rooted sometimes feel very fragile. And what we realized over time is that there are a certain number of conditions that either are the glue that holds families and companies together, but when those conditions break down, the chances of successfully transitioning a family business from one generation to the next become very small, and actually the statistics are very sobering.
before we jump into
Oh, wait a second. Go back. Because I didn't mention the fourth generation, because I'm a grandma. And as a grandma, I cannot not talk about my grandchild. Sorry.
I thought you were going to throw that ball to me, and I was going to pick it up because he's a cutie pie. So before we jump into the heart of the conversation that we would like to have with you today, I need your help in demonstrating something very important. So if you are here today because you are part of a family business, would you please stand? On your feet, please, if you're part of a family business. Thank you. All right. If you're here today,
Keep standing. Keep
yeah,
standing.
stay up, stay on your
keep
feet.
standing.
We're going to get some stretch in for the morning here. All right, if you are here because you support a family business in any way, shape, or form, would you please stand? All right. If you're here because you are friends or family of Rachel and I, would you please stand? She invited the whole town. All right, anyone else who's not on your feet yet, please get up on your feet because it does feel good to walk around for a minute. All right, so we got the whole room standing. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to take these 3 rows on this end, and you all please have a seat. And then let's do the 3 rows on this end, and you all please have a seat. Now, looking around the room, who remains standing? About 30% of the room. That's how many businesses make it from the first generation to the second generation. Right now, let's have you 3 in the front stay, and you right dead center stay. So the 4 tables, everyone else, please take a seat. So tables 3 and 4 in this middle row, go ahead and have a seat. Okay? So now what we have left standing in the room is about 12%. That's how many companies make it from the second generation to the third generation. And finally, just you beautiful people right here in the center, stay standing. Everyone else have a seat. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes. All right, so this lucky group, no, stay on your feet. You're the lucky ones. This is the courageous 3% that make it to the 4th generation. Amazing, isn't it? Look around the room. Just 3% of you still standing 4 generations later. Thank you so much for helping us illustrate that point. So what is it about business? What is it that causes some companies to splinter and fail when in the face of the toughest challenges, other companies come out on the other side stronger, both in family and in their teams? Well, that's what we're here to talk about today. We've divided the story of Wallis into 4 distinct areas. We'll start with the era of origin, move to the era of foundational systems, talk about the era of the unexpected, and then we'll wrap up with the era of unprecedented growth. And in each era, we hope that you will discover the hidden systems that build resiliency, the moments that break most family businesses and how to survive those, and finally, how to build a culture that gets the flywheel spinning.
Okay, so let us jump into the origin story, which talking to a few of you while having coffee already know it. But Wallis Companies began with 1 gas station on Route 66 in Cuba, Missouri in May of 1968. My dad bought this 1 station when he got out of the 101st Airborne with a high school education and a little financial help from his older brother. And in that first year, this 1 gas station did $100,000 in revenue. Now, one of the smartest decisions my dad ever made was marrying my mom, and he did that later that same year. The next year, I came along, followed by my 3 younger brothers. And people always ask me, what's it like growing up in a family business? Well, you can see that we have been integrated pretty much since birth. This was me with my dad helping wash one of the tanker trucks early on. And these are my 3 younger brothers with my parents at a convention when I was at high school, and my brother Jason is here. And I said, I couldn't remember the industry event that you were in, but I'm going to quiz him later and see if he can remember. And I'm sure, as I was thinking about this, my dad was teaching my brothers, how to shake somebody's hand and look at them in the eye. But some of the favorite memories I have in growing up in the family business definitely happened around the kitchen table. Back then, early on, my dad had car washes, and so he would empty out the quarters in the car washes, and then he would pour them all in a bucket, and then he would come home, and then he would dump them all out on the kitchen table. And then my brothers and I would count out 40 quarters so we could put them in the little paper rolls so he could take them to the bank. And at the same kitchen table, my mom would have bookwork spread out after dinner. She was either doing payroll or reconciling bank recs or paying bills. And so we grew up with this, and our parents did such a great job of including us in the business and making it feel, honestly, it was like a fifth child. And we talked about this fifth child as much as we did any one of us. But the end result is that we are all super passionate about Wallis Companies and all went to college, worked someplace else, and then came back to join the business. So the first 20 years of our growth was definitely organic. And then Dad made a conscious decision to switch to acquisitions, and that's when our growth became explosive. And this today are all the brands that we operate under, or all the divisions that we have in our company. And last year, we did $1.5 billion in revenue. See, my dad had this simple belief, yes, a true entrepreneur, American entrepreneur story. But my dad had this simple belief: if you take care of your people and you work hard, that your business will grow. And he was right. And today, we are going to share stories between Tracey and I of how he took care of his people and really what that felt like, because that was Dad's secret sauce. Now, I didn't have the language for it at the time, but today I know my dad operated at the 6th level. The 6th level being the highest level of leadership, where your influence is not about your title, and it's not about the power you have in the organization or even your intelligence. It is truly how you show up with your people day in and day out, how you make them feel, how you help them grow, how you handle it when they make mistakes. This is how you build trust. And the amazing thing is that 25 years later, after my dad has died, people still talk about his leadership, and it continues to shape the culture in our family and our business every single day.
Well, I wasn't there for that first store on Route 66, but I did grow up with my family trading with Bill. So I understood how he cared for people and what his passion was in terms of serving the customer. So when I graduated from college and Bill gave me a call, said, hey, stop by the office the next time you're in town, I thought I'd been working on a scholarship fundraiser locally, and I thought he was going to give me a big donation. So I was very happy to stop by his office and pick up a check. What I didn't realize is that it was going to be a job interview. And Bill offered me a position. I said, Bill, what would I be doing? And he said, I'm not sure, but we'll figure that out. So trusting Bill, I jumped in, and I started working in locations that needed a little extra leadership help. Now, I had no idea what I was doing. I needed a lot of grooming, and fortunately, Bill was willing to give me that on-the-job training. And that came primarily in the form of Saturday morning store rides. So this is what it looked like on a store ride. We'd jump in the truck, head to a location, and we'd park at the edge of the parking lot, never in the front row. Those spots are reserved for customers. Park in the back, walk our way up, and on the way, Bill would stop and pick up trash, or he would stop and have a conversation with a customer who was purchasing gas, or talk with a team member who was involved in a project outside working on image. And each of these visits, every time Bill stopped and engaged someone, it wasn't a superficial, hi, how are you doing? He really cared about that conversation. And these visits took a good amount of time. He wanted to know what was happening in their personal life, what was going on with their family, what were some challenges that they were facing. And I witnessed these visits, and that's a phrase I'm using intentionally. Bill never said, hey, let's talk. He always said, let's visit. And that really meant you were going to get some one-on-one time with him, and you were going to get to go into a deep conversation. So I observed him doing this. Every time we went to a store, he talked to every single team member on site that day. And as we made our way to our last conversation with the store manager, he'd already set the expectations about having that conversation. So once he had the personal one-on-one, then we talked about the health of the business. What's working? What's not working? What obstacles can I remove for you? So Bill, in his mentorship, really set the stage for me in terms of where I would go in my career. But unfortunately, he couldn't teach me everything. I made tons of mistakes early on. And one mistake I recall pretty vividly is when I signed us up for a promotion with mobile. I thought it was a great deal, and I was so excited to tell Bill all about it. And he started asking just a couple of questions like, how many units do you think we'll sell? What are we going to make per unit? And on and on. And it soon became very apparent to me I had made a horrible decision. This was not a good promotion. It was not good for the company. And I felt terrible. I was crushed. And Bill very calmly said, Tracey, look, I know that you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Just don't make them twice because it's too expensive. And second of all, always run your numbers. After that, I always did.
I do love that Dad handpicked Tracey. I mean, that was my dad. He had this innate instinct for people. But more importantly, he treated them in a way that made them want to rise to the occasion. I mean, just think about some of the things that Tracey said in her story. Dad trusted her before she had all the experience or all the answers. And when she did make a mistake, he didn't shut her down. He didn't make her feel dumb. He really lifted her up by asking more questions and leaning in to help her learn. And she never made that mistake again. Tracey's amazing with the numbers. But the other cool thing is that Tracey's favorite memory of Saturday store rides was one of my favorite memories too. And when we would hop back in the truck, Dad would have me jot down everything that he said or wanted, or that he committed to when he was talking with either the customers or the employees, because this was super important to him. He didn't just listen to what people said, he actually acted upon what they said, and this is what made them feel so important. And what I realize now is what he did is not just good leadership. He was truly building something deeper. He was building a relational system. So not a financial system, not an operational system, a relational system. And the sixth level calls this condition mutuality. And mutuality is when you are vulnerable enough to give someone else the reins and trust them and give them the tools and resources for them to make good decisions. And mutuality is listening and getting input from lots of people and feeling responsible for each other, like really having each other care about each other and feeling responsible. And when mutuality is in place, it really makes people want to rise to the occasion. And this is exactly what Tracey and I had to do in the next decade.
All right, so I didn't realize it, but Bill had been preparing for the big kahuna. He made 2 small acquisitions just prior to me joining the organization. And then in December of 1993, we closed on 47 mobile properties in the St. Louis market. And I finally realized why Bill had recruited me to come to work, because he tapped Rachel and I to go into the St. Louis market and run the 16 company-operated stores. Completely frightening time. We were under 25 years old, meaning we weren't even old enough to rent a car, and we were handed the keys to this multi-million-dollar business. It was insane. And we did not really understand what we were doing. But the weight of that acquisition was on our shoulders, and we were driven to do a good job. So we jumped in with both feet. Bill gave us 2 goals. He said, we were driven. We had a little fun along the way, but we had 2 goals. And one was to stabilize operations, and the other was to find our own replacements and train them up. So you might ask how we did this, being that we were so green and inexperienced. Well, we just started with the front line, and we learned the business from the ground up, working every role in the organization, in the stores, including the overnight shifts. And slowly but surely, we listened, we observed, we learned what was happening, and it became pretty apparent that we had some folks that weren't aligned with us, that did not share the Wallis value system. So we had to start culling the herd, and we lost about 13 of 16 managers in that first 12 months. It was a very turbulent time. But don't fear, we also found the diamonds in the rough, which is always the rewarding part of it. There were so many individuals in the organization who were hungry for learning and development, and we were able to grow and develop those team members into fantastic leaders that eventually went on to long and successful careers at Wallis and retired. So it was a very rewarding time for us to be in the business. Now, once the operations had stabilized and our replacements were trained and ready to go, Bill sent us on a benchmarking trip to an amazing company in Indiana. They were so much more sophisticated than we were. They were doing great things. And Rachel and I took pages and pages of notes, and the whole car ride home from Indiana, we were just, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And we were so excited about what was to come, what was ahead of us. So we got back to town, and we got to work. And as we got to work, we started thinking about these systems that we could put in place, the hidden systems that would transform our culture. And at the time, I mean, the list sounds so simple when I say it today, but it was really a transformational time for us as an organization. We started with financial, and we had engaged a consultant who said to us, it's really important that you get a CFO on your team. You need a master of your finances to help prepare you for the next acquisition. And so we did that. And then we started working on the talent stack. We had a lot of systems that we needed to put in place. Now, just to set the stage, we had about 500 employees at this time, most of whom had formerly worked for Mobil Oil Corporation, a Fortune 500 company, and now they were working for Wallis. And so we had to get to work, thinking about how we attract and retain folks. What learning systems could we put in place? How could we develop individuals? We needed to look at our compensation and our benefits programs, enrich them, and bring more consistency and uniformity to the process. We didn't even have performance reviews. We started working on that. And just along the way, we introduced a phantom stock program for our key leaders and just started doing things that grown-up companies do. And growing up, we also found a strategic tool in the balanced scorecard. We brought that to the organization so that we could clearly articulate to the team, this is what our strategy is. And by the way, this is how you play the game and how we keep score so that you know if we're winning at our strategy or not. And so all of these amazing tools are still in place today. But 30 years ago, these were bold moves for our organization to make. And it was so exhilarating for Rachel and I to be on the ground floor of moving our company from a mom and pop operation to a professionally run organization that was ready to compete in the big leagues.
Yeah, those first few years were super intense, and even though we had a lot of fun, it was like a revolving door, and it felt like a bleed that I had no idea how to stop. And then I did a field ride with Dad, and on our way home from St. Louis to Cuba, my pager kept going off. And after listening to this for about 10 minutes, my dad said, Rach, do you know what the sign is of a good leader? I said, no, what, Dad? And he said, one whose pager doesn't go off every 2 minutes. And I took that to heart. And the next time a manager called me and I called back to the store, I asked them, how would you solve the problem? And we talked through the problem and allowed them to come up with the solution. Because Dad's message was very simple. Give your people the tools, the resources, and the information that they need to solve their own problems. And also from Dad, Tracey and I learned how to have conversations with heart. Tracey talked about that financial, or the consultant that told us that we really needed a CFO. But what she didn't tell you is that we already had a controller in place that was our top financial person. But before Dad even posted the position and tried to recruit for the CFO, he went into her office and he gave her all of the reasons why he felt we needed a CFO. And then he said, give it 6 months. And then come back and tell me how you really feel about this transition, because the CFO is now her boss. 6 months later, she came into my dad's office and she thanked him. And she said, Bill, I could have never realized it at the time, but she said, this CFO has taught me so much, and now I know what it's going to take for me to be your next CFO. So the takeaway is that tough conversations and hard decisions can always be had and build trust while you're doing it when they are done with dignity and respect. So this leads to a bigger truth, that relational systems are not put in place to control people. Relational systems are put in place to create clarity, transparency, accountability, and most importantly, consistency for everyone in the organization. This is how trust is built at scale, and the 6th level calls this condition justness. And this is one of the hardest ones for companies to get. But when you can combine a culture where people feel cared for and there are systems that support justness, you unlock something very powerful. People stop protecting themselves and people start stepping up. And thank God, Wallis Companies had mutuality and justness in place because it is exactly what we needed to make it through the next decade.
All right, so the next decade, you better hang on for the ride. Let me see a show of hands. How many in here have had a time in your life, either personally or professionally, when everything that could go wrong went wrong? You with me out there? Yes. Well, that was life at Wallis in the 2000s. We faced so many unexpected challenges during that period. I'll just share a short list with you. Starting in 2001, we lost our beloved founder, Rachel's dad, Bill, to cancer. We were reeling from heartache and weren't sure how to get back on track. Later that same year, following the tragedy of 9/11, the head of our transport team died instantly from a heart attack. Fast forward to 2006, following an acquisition of half of the BP assets in the St. Louis market, there was an unanticipated shift in the market in terms of pricing that sent us into a catastrophic financial tailspin. In 2009, our dear friend and leader, the chief operating officer at our company, who's pictured here with Bill, he's in the referee shirt, his name is Mark Martinovich, he died from the same cancer that took Bill from us. Bill had handpicked him to lead our organization, and now he was gone too. And then later in 2009, our premier brand, On the Run, that's part of a franchise system, was sold to our competitor. So now we were legally obligated to share our sales numbers with the person competing across the street from us. Every time we turned around, something completely unexpected and something that we felt like we had very little control over was happening to us. Any one of those moments could have broken us as an organization.
And while all those bombs were going off inside the company, our family was navigating as much complexity as what was happening then. Obviously, with Dad's cancer diagnosis that happened in 1998, then the cancer came back, but he actually did close on one final acquisition, a relationship he had built with another family business, and this was in the year 2000. And he had the help of the CFO, and also because of everything going on with the cancer, he ended up giving our family a gift, and he put this acquisition in my brother and our second generation name. And at the same time, when the cancer became terminal, my mom and I were preparing to go on a trip to Florida to see her parents, and at the time I had 3 children, all under the age of 5, and Dad made a last-minute decision to fly with us. And when we got to the Tampa airport, Dad died. And that moment forever changed our lives. At the time, my mom obviously lost like the love of her life and the partner in her business. My brothers and I lost the center of our lives and truly the communication hub of our family. And my 3 kids lost their pop. So Mom then moved from behind the scenes. She was the college-educated one, always dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and moved out from behind the scenes up to president and CEO. And she became my boss. And mom and dad have very different leadership styles, so this was personally a little bit of a challenge and a huge adjustment for me. Now, within 2 years of dad dying, all 3 of my brothers got married, and it was also hard because we were now owners. So I know this picture looks fabulous, and we truly are a family that love each other. I mean, you would be surprised at the amount of family vacations that we do and all stay in one house. But behind the scenes of this picture was a challenge for us. Dad's gone. We are shareholders, and we are also all working in the business in our own division. So we are butting heads on where capital should be deployed. And then we started trying to do family meetings on our own. And that was a huge challenge because not only of the capital deployment, but we were arguing about why are we getting market salaries when we're also owners, and why do our executives have a phantom stock program but we're not getting dividends beyond tax distributions. So all of this culmination of family meetings led to a lot of loud voices and a lot of tears. And then mom, at the end of one of these family meetings, made it very clear: I would rather sell this company than have it destroy our family harmony. And that is when we realized that we needed help. And we hired our first family business governance advisors. And I think mainly they helped us understand that we are not alone. And I'm sure that all of we have so many here today that are part of a family business structure, and I'm sure a lot of this is resonating with you. One thing, and one example that I really remember that they told us early on was about a baby mobile. And they said, when somebody is born in your family, or somebody dies, somebody gets married, or somebody gets divorced, this baby mobile, like your family, needs time to recalibrate. The other thing that they taught us is be cognizant of the hat you're wearing. Are you speaking as an owner? Are you speaking as a manager, trying to vie for that capital? Are you speaking as a family member where you're really concerned, for the family aspect? But most importantly, they taught us how to stay at the table when those conversations were not easy, when it was a real challenge and very emotional. And that was the start of our family relation systems.
All right, so back on the company side, during these times that were unsettled, we were so fortunate that we had these relational systems in place already, because that resiliency, we needed that as things got tough. And one of the most gut-wrenching times that I recall in the business was when we purchased the BP assets. This is the big Amoco sign on Skinker that many of you might be familiar with. So in 2006, BP decided to exit the market. They sold half the assets to us, half the assets to another marketer, and they had been the price leader. They were the ones that established the leadership role in St. Louis. And when they exited, no one stepped up to take over that role. We didn't anticipate that in our due diligence. And so what happened is the street prices spiraled down, and soon we were selling below cost, losing thousands of dollars a day in a time when we were working hard to buy out a partner and pay off a big loan that we just borrowed. So it was an unsustainable situation. It was like a free fall, and we had to do something, and do something fast. So we did something we'd never done before. We invested in data and analytics, put a discipline program together around pricing, and we started sending our store managers out almost daily to make changes at the street. Now, it was a big gamble, because if the market didn't respond, we were going to lose our shirts. But luckily, because of our diligence and our consistency, our persistence to our strategy, slowly the market shifted, the cadence changed, and we became the price leader. Now, pricing is not the only way that we adapted during these difficult times. We also diversified to add locations to our business, to add different income streams to our business. We started a wholesale car wash business, selling car wash equipment and chemicals. We diversified into commercial fuels and found non-traditional outlets for gasoline. And then we did something that you all might be familiar with. We started a partnership with the St. Louis Cardinals. When the Cards score 6, drinks are just 60 cents the next day at On the Run. You might be familiar with that promotion. What you may not remember is that when we started it in 2005, it was when the Cards score 7 runs. Well, they don't do that very often. So it was a miserable failure that first year. So we just made an adjustment and aligned with Stan Musial, always a great plan in St. Louis, and now the rest is history. It's been a great promotion for us. It really strengthened our brand value position in the marketplace, and it deepened our connection with the community and started us on a path to support many of our local teams. Now, we did not have all the answers as we were dealing with all of these unexpected challenges that hit us, but what I will say is that we were willing to test new ideas, and we listened to experts that were outside of the business about things that might work. We adjusted quickly when we needed to, and ultimately, our goal was to learn faster than the problems we were facing were evolving.
So as you've heard, the family and the company met this adversity by employing new ideas and new creative ways to solve problems that we had not faced. And looking back now, something really becomes clear to me. When mutuality and justness were strong, people didn't just sit back and wait for direction. And when you have outside advisors and friends and family coming together to help solve complex problems, plus multiple people in your organization that feel so connected to helping solve this, it becomes like a 1 + 1 = 3. And there's nothing like this when you have this synergy. And what we learned is that it always comes back to relational systems. So I like to ask the question, do individuals in the company feel cared for? Like, are we taking care of the me? And then, do the systems support not only the me, but the collective we? Because when you have this, this is where ingenuity really comes to play. And by 2009, so at the end of all of this decade of unexpected, we had gotten our turnover down to a best-in-class number of 30% for our industry. So it was a significant drop. But this didn't happen by accident. This was a complete and direct result of everyone stepping up, solving problems, and building something better together. And that is the condition that we call ingenuity. And it wasn't only happening inside the business. So let me take you back to the day Dad died in that Tampa airport. Mom and I packed the kids in a car, followed the ambulance to the hospital. And as we sat in a little room making phone calls to our employees and family and friends, we decided to honor Dad in a way by creating a foundation in his name. And that next year, our employees created a Bill Wallace Classic, a golf tournament that helps raise money to support the scholarships that we're giving out. And to date, we've given out over 157 scholarships that honors his legacy, and that golf tournament still exists today and on 2 18-hole courses that we sell out of very quickly. And my mom has more recently built on this ingenuity and this whole legacy of philanthropy by creating this annual event for our family called Hanukkah Shark Tank. And this brings out all family members' creativity when they try to pitch which not-for-profit they think should get some of the foundation money. And so all of this ingenuity happening in the company and the family led us into the next decade, which was an era of unprecedented growth.
All right, so go or grow. That is the saying in this industry. It is too capital intensive to straddle the fence. So companies have to decide. Are you going to stay and play the game? Or are you going to sell out? Fortunately for us, the Wallis family has always prioritized reinvestment in the business. And so during the next decade, we took even bigger risks than we had before. And this next slide gives you a few of those metrics to show you how the growth played out along the way. Don't want to focus on all of them. I'm going to start at the bottom with the car wash. So I mentioned that wholesale car wash business we started. Well, the next decade, we added a retail arm, and Brightworks Car Washery was born, and we started counting how many cars we washed on a daily basis. Next, in the food arena, we had been working to bring fresh food to our stores on a daily basis, but we were struggling because we lacked the expertise that we needed. An acquisition that we're going to talk about in just a few minutes brought us the know-how, and today we are running a state-of-the-art USDA facility that produces more than 5 million pieces a year. That is to a business that we closed in 2015 because we couldn't figure it out. The biggest growth, the holy grail of all of the growth, came in a deal that Rachel crafted. This was the acquisition of the Paul Taylor family assets, UGAS and Dirt Cheap. Cheap, cheap, fun, fun. You guys heard of that? So we really wanted this deal. This was an exciting opportunity for us. It was so many synergies with our geographies and the locations and how they went to market. It would double the size of our company and double our EBITDA. But it was a huge long shot for us because there were national and international bidders with deeper pockets than we had. We were the David to their Goliath. The owner doubted that we could take it down. They didn't think that we had the muscle to do it. But what I learned through this process is never underestimate Rachel. And I know that the spirit of Bill was with her as she worked behind the scenes to bring this deal to the forefront for us.
Yeah, so once again, like all of the other acquisitions, this definitely came down to relationships. So I started with the founder's son and asked him to go to breakfast, and that's when I planted a seed and tried to figure out what synergies that we could get aligned with. So a few months later, we became their largest customer in their commissary that was at the time running under capacity. And then we started this relationship, and then 7 months later at a trade show in Kansas City, we had a drink, and I'm like, so any updates on your family, any other ways that we could get together? And he said, yeah, I'm letting you know that we decided to sell. And I think I got us a seat at that table because I was listening very intently about what mattered most to him and his dad and their family. And even though he came off and said it was the financial aspect, truly it was how we would take care of their people. And we had gotten so much better at bringing in acquisitions and taking care of people because that acquisition in 2000 really taught us how to bring in people systems. So I just started reeling off. We are going to take care of your people because if they've been with you 10 years, when they join Wallis, they'll have been with us 10 years. And that means health insurance on day one. That means if there's better benefits because you've been at a company longer, like vacation or PTO, they're going to get that exact same benefit. And we committed to go to tremendous lengths to create a seamless culture so they did not feel like stepchildren joining our company. And he believed in me, and he trusted me, and we signed the letter of intent. Now, the most exhilarating thing of this whole process was the ability to build mutuality and justness before we closed. So we had such this good relationship that Paul Taylor, the founder, and I did 14 in-person town hall meetings with over 500 of their employees. He stood up and talked about why they wanted to sell to Wallis for all the reasons I just told you. And then I stood up and with complete clarity and transparency told them everything about compensation, benefits, and the culture and the growth potential within our company. Now, after these town hall meetings, actually, one more thing I did before we closed was I started a Friday email because Paul always had a joke to tell, and he told the joke before each one of those town hall meetings. And so right after we got done with those, I thought it's going to be better if we start communicating to all employees. So email went to all 500 of his employees and all 500 of our employees. And that Friday email, even though it's called something different today, is still in place today. But right after we closed, then we put together a team that we called the best of both. So there were 7 managers from our legacy stores and then 7 managers from their stores, and they came together to solve about 4 major operational issues, just procedures about how we were going to move forward. But the beauty about this team coming together was being able to see this mutuality and justness being there, but this ingenuity coming to life. And these individuals were so intrinsically motivated because not only had they just been sold by their company, now they're in a totally new environment, but they are coming up with these ideas about how we could move forward with the best of both from representing both companies. And this was just an exhilarating high to see all of this come together. And then 90 days later, I became the CEO. And I wish I could say that that was smooth sailing, but it wasn't. And even though we had planned for this transition for over 3 years, the one thing I think that you can't account for on paper is the emotional toll that it takes on individuals when you change a title or change responsibility and how that equates to somebody's purpose. And on top of all the succession issues I was dealing with relative to becoming CEO, I was also dealing with a marriage in crisis at home because my husband, during the same time, had 3 failed attempts at rehab for alcoholism. So at the end of the day, I felt like a complete train wreck. And then a pivotal moment happened 5 months into my CEO position. We had a big advisory board meeting with conversations about the acquisition we just did, followed by a family meeting that completely went awry. And I went to bed that night and I woke up with an epiphany. I needed to resign, but I wanted to make a conscious decision to exit gracefully. And when I moved on to lead another organization, it truly gave my brothers room to figure out what are the next steps and where do we want to go as a family business. And 4 years after I left that graceful exit, my brothers decided we want to be a multi-generational business, and we vowed to do whatever it took to be one of those 3%.
I commend Rachel for the way that she left. Those decisions are not easy ones to make. She said she was a train wreck, but that never showed to those of us that were working beside her every day. Rachel served our company loyally and faithfully for 24 years, and she still does today as a shareholder and board member, and more importantly, as a mentor and friend to me. I think one of the most telling metrics about an organization is how long people stay. And we are so blessed at Wallis to have a long tenured team. By example, the average length of service for our mid-tier leaders in the organization is 20 years. The average length of service for our division leads, my direct reports, is 16 years. So Bill's motto was surround yourself with people who are smarter than you are. And I think that that motto is something that has certainly contributed to my personal success at Wallis, but also to the growth of our organization. And I am working on keeping that at my forefront as I focus on succession planning for our organization right now. We have several big roles that will be retiring in the next few years, and we're working on filling those shoes. So we started our talk this morning talking about a small number of conditions that break down an organization or can be the glue that holds it together. We shared with you hidden systems that built resiliency at Wallis. So now I want to turn the tables on you for just a moment and ask for your participation once again. I'm going to ask you 4 questions, and I'd like for you to rate your business on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 is you're at the top of your game, and 1 is you're in critical need of help. So I think there's some pens and paper on the tables. If you don't mind, just grab one and play along with me. The first question is on mutuality. Does your organization have relational systems in place that encourage leaders to visit with team members, listen, and take action on input when they receive it? Give yourself a rating from 1 to 5, please. Next question. Justness. Does your company have systems in place that are consistent, equitable, and transparent? Does your team know the score? Give yourself a rating, please. Next, ingenuity. When you face big hurdles as a company, does the team come together offering up an innovative solution that benefits many rather than staying focused on single objectives? Rate yourself, please. And finally, intrinsic motivation. Is engagement high in your company? Are folks motivated not by a title or by dollars and cents, but by being part of a team that they care about and that everyone supports the mission for? Give yourself a rating. All right. Now, take an average of those 4 numbers. If your average is 4 or 5, congratulations, you're doing something really, really well, and it is a lot of hard work to get there, so I applaud your efforts for that. If you're a little lower on the scale, no worries. We've all been there. We've been there many, many times. The key to this exercise is creating awareness for you so that you know where you are on the scale. At Wallis, whenever we found ourselves at a 3 or less, we asked for help. And that help could come in the form of partners like CMA and many of the sponsors that are here today. Or it could come from suppliers or customers. The inspiration comes from a lot of places. Just really encourage you, don't be afraid to ask for help on your journey.
And the good news is no matter where you fall in this rating, the 6th level has this roadmap to build a culture that no one wants to leave. So if you're just weak in mutuality, it's really simple. Like, just make a point to talk to a few more people, like visit and listen to what they're saying and get that input. If you feel like your team is a revolving door, or you're having trouble replace people, or there's just silence, because that quiet quitting is also a problem. Just think about your systems and if they really support justness, the transparency, the clarity, the accountability, and the consistency. And I really do feel in my heart of hearts, when those 2 things are in place, ingenuity and intrinsic motivation start to come out, and it really does get your culture flywheel spinning. And I do wish I had this roadmap and this knowledge when I was building all the systems with Tracey as we were kind of growing up. It would have been easier to navigate. But this is what I do now, and if any of this resonated with you and you want to ever have a conversation about the 6th level or family business, I am always available to have coffee and talk. So we're going to close out by bringing this story full circle. This is a picture of Tyler when he was young with my dad. Tyler is now the chair of our family council, and we were just putting the finishing touches on the employment policy for G3. And so now Wallis posted a position that Tyler has experience at, that he's been doing a similar position at Deloitte for the past 7 years. But believe me, none of this is simple. Like, for this to work, so many stars have to align. First of all, in Tyler's experience, Tyler has to want to work for this family business. And at the same time, Wallis has to have a position that Tyler is qualified for and can bring value to for Wallis. And then once Tyler goes through all of the behavioral interview assessments and all of the CMA testing and gets side by side with all the other qualified candidates, then we trust Wallis that they're going to make a decision that's good for the company and for the family. So none of this is simple. But if it all comes together and there's a yes on both sides, it is Tyler's opportunity to make his own mark on the legacy of our company. And as a mom and a shareholder and a member of this very messy but very human family that keeps coming to the table to do the work, I would be so proud for that to happen. Did I miss another picture of my grandchild? Yes, and so Tyler, is a dad himself now. And this is what I wish for every family business in the room. I think we all know, because we have a lot of similarities, but our own unique stories. Family businesses are tough. And what I wish for everybody is not perfection, and it's not avoiding the hard moments, but it's having the skills and the tools and resources to stick it out at the table and keep coming back to be strong enough to move forward to pass this to a new generation. So I do want to thank my dad for having the gumption early on to create this family legacy for our family. And I have another story that I'm not sharing right now, but the bankers that actually gave him a loan when nobody else would helped our company survive past the 70s. I want to thank my mom, who stepped up, who is a strong, smart woman that sustained this after my dad died and is still working hard side by side with us every day. And I want to thank Tracey, who does an amazing job, and my brother Chad, who's president and chairman of the board today, for leading the next generation into our company. And I definitely want to thank my family because we do the hard work and show up every single day. And on behalf of Tracey and myself, thank you to CMA and all the sponsors that put this program on to help us all learn from each other. And most importantly, thank you to all of you who showed up today so we could share our story with you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.